Welcome to our TOK presentation about science and responsibility. Our presentation examines to what extent specific features of modern scientific method enable scientists to take responsibility for medical side effects and socio-political implications of their work. We will be comparing the methods of modern science and their medical and ecological implications with specific features of holistic natural sciences such as Ayurveda, which is the Indian traditional holistic medicine, modern sciences that attempt to be holistic, and the arts. We will start with a talk show between a geneticist, ecologist, and an Ayurvedist. The skit will demonstrate the alternative approaches to genetics as well as the positive and negative aspects of genetic engineering. We will also discuss aspects of atomism and holism in the modern scientific method. Pose.
Welcome to Ethics, High-Techs and Ethics with Radical Radhika. Tonight, we will discuss the ethical implications of one of the most controversial scientific pursuits of our time, genetic engineering. We will do this by comparing it with modern holistic science and with attempts to be holistic in sciences like ecology. Here we have the famous geneticist, Dr. D. N. Aaron, who has been working on the project focusing on gene expression to explain the modern scientific method and its stance on ethical implications. We have Dr. Brinda Nageshwari, Vavilapalli Chinnalu to represent the holistic science and its ethical responsibilities. To represent the holistic revisions within modern science itself, we have the colorful ecologist, Dr. Harita Varshini. Presently, she is working as Planning and Green Infrastructure Advisor to the Natural England Association. Dr. Aaron, could you explain how genetics is applied to medicine and how your medicine deals with ethical implications of medical side effects?
Well, you see, in genetics, what we try to do is we focus on the specific gene that causes the disease. For example, the first genetically engineered medicine was synthetic human insulin. And what the scientists did was they took bacteria and inserted plasmids into them that had the ability to produce human insulin. And now they can harvest this human insulin and use it to treat diabetes patients. What scientists does, and genetics especially, is look at the body as a sum of parts. This is the atomistic method. And what we do is the real problem is with genetics is we can't include ethics, because ethical variables are not controllable. And for science to have true experiments, they must have controllable and falsifiable hypotheses and variables.
But why can't we include the ethical variables?
Ethical variables aren't controllable, and thus we can't put them into a scientific hypothesis. All scientific hypotheses must be falsifiable. Now, each ethical variable will have a different view from each of the different value systems in our society. Each different value system will look at the situation with a different perspective, and thus we can't reach any conclusions about it. Now, for it to be a true experiment, we must be both controllable and falsifiable in our variables. Only then can we be truly atomistic and objective.
Dr. Brinda Nageshwari, could you comment on what Dr. Aaron just said?
I think the atomistic method he speaks about is intrinsically prone to unethical implications. We know that trisomy 21 leads to Alzheimer's. You may modify the trisomy 21 and remove the extra chromosome and you may prevent Alzheimer's, but that same trisomy 21 may be related to other factors such as speech and even intellectual and psychological capabilities that you might not know at the present moment. Apart from being free from Alzheimer's, the patient may have severe mutant genes.
But that's just guesswork.
Modern science is arguing from ignorance to say that. It is not rational to proceed that way.
Today in modern science, reason is used to be less atomistic, more holistic, and to be more responsible. For example, there is the precautionary principle, which states that if an action or policy may cause severe harm to the public or to the environment, in the absence of scientific consensus, that harm would not ensue. The burden of proof falls on those who advocate taking action. Dr. Harita, even though you're a modern scientist, you include ethics in your work. What do you think about this?
Well, that's great in theory, but in practice there have been many instances where the scientific community has said that no harm would occur to the environment, but really there have been some catastrophic consequences.
Oh, give me one example.
What about BT maize? That's caused a mass poisoning in several animal in species such as the bees, butterflies, and even the peacock due to the Bt toxin it's modified with. Ayurvedic medicine, on the other hand, conserves the environment as it uses natural medicines and takes only what the environment can sustain.
But you see, what we do is we look at the effects that the Bt maize has, and then we can alter it and produce a more efficient product. That's how we gain knowledge and improve our society.
You see, with Ayurveda, we make sure we consider the consequences of our actions before we make claims about benefiting mankind. The starting point of holistic explanations is the whole. We start off by considering all the variables, even those that we don't know of, whereas you make the mistake of confining yourself to controllable variables and consensual observations.
Following from what Dr. Chinilu's point, we are beginning to see more cases where a symbiosis between alternative and holistic sciences is being suggested. We see that studies by Edinburgh and Ching in both US and the UK have suggested that more alternative and complementary therapies are included in nursing and other allopathic practices.
Well, you see, I think if we develop a synergy between the two practices and lots of aspects between the two practices, we can truly improve our society through what we create.
Well, this debate can go on forever, but can these systems not coexist? Both have their strengths and weaknesses, and the exchange of philosophies can lead to both systems coexisting and prove to be a boon to the patients. We wish we had more time, but thank you for putting forward your expertise. What we have learned on the whole is that a possibility of synergy between the holistic approaches and genetics cannot be ruled out. Thank you and goodbye. Pause.
As we saw in the previous skit, holism and atomism are very prevalent issues when we're dealing with the aspects of science and responsibility. Now, this slide shows the aspects of positive and negative aspects of atomism. Now, the positive is because we look specifically at a single discrete part of the whole, and thus we can examine the effects of each part upon the other parts. Negative is because we cannot properly view the relationship between these parts. And we could say that affecting one thing here will affect something here, but it's purely assumption. Now, specifically in genetic engineering, atomism is positive because it gives us a high degree of certainty. We can look specifically at a certain thing and know that by altering it, this is what's going to happen. However, for the negative, when we use atomism, we can't always see the side effects upon other systems. We can see the side effects within a system, but we can't see the ones upon other systems. Now, holism in general, the positive aspects, the whole is primary and it's greater than the sum of parts. If you take atomism, you're looking at singular and summative data, when if you take holism, you're looking at the whole and you're looking at the spiritual, the emotional, and the physical. The negative, the approach can't be used for everyone because it focuses on the specific subjectivities and different value systems of that specific person. Okay, now in traditional science, the positive is it focuses on a long-lasting treatment for the entire body instead of a long-lasting treatment just for the physical aspect or just for the spiritual aspect. Negative, however, is I couldn't go into an emergency room with a heart attack and say I need Ayurvedic medicine because it is not short-term treatment. Pause. In this next skit, we'll be looking at a dialogue between two scientists who've been working on a genetic engineering program for the last 10 years. One of them has decided to resign because of moral and ethical issues. We'll be examining the idea of subjectivity and objectivity, and also whether or not we need scientific objectivity. Pause.
I don't see why you're leaving our project. It's been going so well and we've been diversifying. I mean, we've been pioneers for 10 years. I don't understand why you're committing career harakiri.
My career alone is not important to me. I have to look at the ethical aspects of my work. I feel that we've been working on projects which have the potential to destroy the world we live in and allow manipulative governments to abuse scientific knowledge to monitor human life or even design human beings.
But you are being so subjective. We need to be objective. We must focus on what is empirically provable and observable.
Oh, but what you call objectivity is only methodological objectivity. It is exclusively knowledge used to manipulate genes.
But we are asked to be detached from emotional subjectivity. We can't ask subjective questions. We must just look at, science is needed to look at what is objective and what we can manipulate.
In some ways, it's more objective to examine one's own subjectivity. Why am I doing this? Why do we need this? Sometimes if we look back at what we're doing, it can help us to be truly objective. The object we're dealing with is not just DNA or RNA, but the future of the entire human race.
But we are creating a better future for the human race, so shouldn't we even be able to alter it?
I think literature helps us to look at how ignoring ethical values can lead to unforeseen hazardous implications. For example, look at Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. He hoped to create a human being, but to his horror, a monster was created. From this, we can learn that although we have the power and knowledge to control variables and we're certain of the objectivity of the method used, we are highly uncertain of the product. Thus, we cannot completely rely on the objectivity of science.
The future is always uncertain.
This skit is a sub-skit from the Two Scientists skit, and it is called Director of Hatcheries. It has been adapted from the novel A Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. This skit represents a world in which a process similar to genetic engineering has been manipulated and the power inherent in the scientific knowledge is being misused. This objective institution gives us an insight into the mindset of the resigning scientists in the previous skit.
Of course, the whole procedure is voluntary. People do it only for the good of the society and a nominal sum amounting to a 6-month salary. This is an incubator. Here we divide the eggs into alphas and betas. They are put into a special incubator. The deltas, gammas and epsilons are put into another incubator over here. These shall proliferate into scores of embryos.
But what is the advantage in this?
Dearie me, don't they teach you anything these days? Can't you see? Imagine tons of identical twins working on twins of identical machines. Finally, the principle of mass production shall be applied to human race. Think of it this way. If you wanted to classify humans into 5 categories, you could say that on the top are the philosophers and the thinkers. These are the alphas. Below them are the scientists. These are the betas. Below them are the businessmen, the gammas. The last 2 categories are the deltas and the epsilons. These are the people who do the work which are below us. Now, instead of waiting for this to happen naturally, we could just create them. Nature is inefficient. Thus, we must make it efficient. This is the perfect tool for social stability. No longer we need to wait for Albert Einstein or Isaac Newton. Just create one.
But isn't it hard to control the variables?
Well, of course, it's bloody well hard to control the variables. It took us 20 years to develop this technique, and still it's not perfect. The eggs need to be kept in the incubator for exactly 36 hours. Otherwise, they are useless. And after that, they must be put under X-rays for 8 minutes for them to proliferate properly. And even after that, we get 96 embryos from one egg. 96 is the limit. Optimum is 72. That is from one fertilized egg. Sadly, this was the best we could do. But think of it, a whole human race manufactured, made order to speak, a perfect world, everyone efficient for social stability. Pause. In the previous skit demonstrated the different types of subjectivity and objectivity. In genetic engineering, subjective is positive because it allows us to integrate ethical and spiritual issues into our trials, and thus we can view subject as a whole instead of the sum of its parts. It is also negative as it includes personal opinion, and this restricts our ability to make generalizations and thus make scientific progress. objectivity in genetic engineering. There's no personal opinion involved, therefore generalizations can be made. And the negative is that it allows unexamined subjectivity. It reduces the universe to merely physical factors, merely methodological objectivity is included. Pause.
Can't you see? The director has created a more efficient world.
But that view is subjective in a limited way. Scientific objectivity can become prey to other subjectivities. There is no method to examine for self-reflection, and thus it is easily altered by other people. Good artists do a better job of examining the whole object.
How can you say that? Scientists are so subjective. They only use their imagination and emotion.
But there are good and bad artists. Artists like Huxley and Mary Shelley use their imaginations to create a hypothetical laboratory in which we can examine different subjectivities and see the horrors of science. We can see the horrors of the misuse of scientific knowledge.
But it's just that all these situations are hypothetical. They are just hypothetical.
But what are hypotheses then? In science, we make assumptions every day in our search for greater truth and knowledge.
Oh, okay, maybe you're right. I hadn't thought about it that way. Science can't be cut out from society just merely for the purpose of getting scientific objectivity. We must include all aspects in order to get complete truth.
The next skit is based on the famous parable of Rags Bradbury. In this skit, we have tried to show that inventions may contribute to human progress, but later they may be one of the reasons for destruction. Pause. In the year 400 AD, Emperor Wan held his throne by the Great Wall of China. The land was green with rain, proceeding towards harvest, and in peace, the people under his dominion, neither too happy nor too sad. Early in the morning, when Emperor Wan was sipping tea and fanning himself against the warm breeze, a servant ran across the scarlet and blue garden tiles.
Oh, Emperor, a miracle! Excellency, a man is flying.
What?
I saw him in the air, a man flying with wings. A voice called up from the sky, and when I looked, there he was, a dragon in the heavens, a dragon of paper and bamboo with a man in its mouth. Come, you will see it too.
It is early and you have just wakened from a dream.
It is early, but I have seen what I have seen. Please, or he will be gone.
You may show me what you have seen.
And in the sky was a man, laughing so loud that you could hardly hear him. He was clothed in paper and reeds, which made wings and a beautiful yellow tail. He was soaring all about like a greatest bird, a new dragon in the land of ancient dragons.
I fly!
Emperor Wan did not move. Instead, he looked at the Great Wall of China, and he saw
Has anyone else seen this man?
I am the only one, Excellency.
Call him down to me. What have you done?
Your Majesty, I have created the only flying machine in the world, and I am the inventor. Is it not beautiful, Your Excellency?
Yes, too beautiful. Does anyone else know about this?
No, only I do.
Guards, seize this man. Call the executioner.
What have I done?
You built this thing and you ask me what you have done?
I have flown in the sky. I have seen the beautiful clouds. I have smelled the morning air. I've just felt it's beautiful, Your Majesty. It's beautiful.
Yes, I'm sure it's beautiful. I looked at you and I thought, what is it like up there? How do the distant villages look? How are the distant cities not yet awake? But sometimes one must sacrifice a little beauty to keep the beauty that one already has. I do not fear you, but I fear another man.
What man?
Some other man who, seeing you, will build this same contraption of bamboo and paper. but his face will be an evil face, and his heart an evil heart. And he will destroy the beauty in it. It is this man I fear.
Why? Why?
What is to say that this man will not fly over the Great Wall of China and drop stones upon it? Executioner, kill him. Burn the kite and burn his body with it. Bury their ashes together. Oh, wait, look at the birds, look at the birds. They have inspired this and they will be there forevermore. Change will always come.
The Chinese Emperor's skit showed the possible consequences of an invention and how we must be aware of these long-term consequences. We are not saying that inventors should be discouraged. However, we must take into account all the possible outcomes of a certain invention. The final skit is going to show us how religion and the arts can be used as a guide for modern science. In it, we see a dialogue between a guru and a Christian genetic engineer who is confused about the purpose of his work.
Who am I come before you with confusion in my heart.
What is the problem, my son?
I thought I was improving the world. I've been working on this genetic engineering program for so long, and I thought I was making people's lives better. But now, people are beginning to doubt my work, and doubt genetic engineering as a whole. I thought I understood people, but maybe I'm just making a danger to society.
What you create is determined by two things: the human ability to be noble and the ability to fall from nobility. Man is a multifaceted being, and if you understand the evil in man, you can stop the evil.
But how can we include evil in a scientific experiment? It can't be one of the variables. That's crazy. What do you expect me to do? I'll be mocked by society.
There is a duplicity in nature. Think of it as a double helix. On one hand you have the evil, on the other hand you have the good. If you truly understand this, you will be able to know that it is better to be remembered as someone who is mocked by society than one who destroyed society.
But how can you say that? I'm being opposed even within my own religion.
They're not opposing you because they think you're wrong. They're opposing you because they think you can create evil. Go back to your religion. Religion and art have the knowledge of the capacity for evil in humanity.
I can see now. Religion and the arts can guide science. We need that guidance. Man is capable of evil. It says so in Genesis. Man is capable of the original sin.
My son, you have realized the truth behind your science. Hippocrates himself said, "Declare the past, diagnose the present, and foretell the future." Practice these acts. As to disease, keep two things in mind: to help or to do no harm. We have the promise of redemption from our sin. We can achieve the nobility that we were meant to have.
Pause.
Throughout this presentation, we have been looking at the relative capabilities of the modern scientific method as applied in genetic engineering and of alternative approaches such as holistic sciences and the arts with respect to science and responsibility. We saw in the last skit the relationship between science and religion and the arts. The Guru suggested that we use religion and the arts as a guide so that we do not misuse scientific knowledge. From this presentation, we can see that although there are vast differences between modern science and the alternative approaches, they both share common roots in their purpose of helping others. If we create a combination of the two different aspects, we can develop a system that focuses both on the mineral and the holistic level. Thank you for watching our TOK presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it.
we can start. Yeah? Okay, does anyone have any questions they want to ask? It would be good if someone had one, because otherwise it's a waste of time.
Yes,
Victoria first.
How does one assess the adequacy of subjective variables in science?
Subjective variables in science. Well, I think during the Two Scientists skit and also in the first Ayurveda skit, we talked about the need for objectivity in science, but you look at the modern sciences, lots of them are trying to be more subjective and more holistic, especially like ecology, etc. And I think that although you can assess the subjective variables in science, they are exactly that, they're subjective. My subjective variable, the way I look at it, will be different from the way you look at it because of our different value systems and our different hierarchy of thought. Yeah. Anyone else? No? Can someone ask so they can talk?
I think we're done. What else? We're done.
That's it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.